On today's show, we will be discussing how to find time for self-care when both parents work while raising three children and two with special needs. Hello, Naked Parent Nation, and welcome to today's episode of the Naked Parent Podcast. My name's Chad Ratliff, and I'm your host. Before I introduce you to our guest today, let me start by sharing our community's preamble. Naked Parent Nation's a worldwide community of parents raising children with all kinds of needs. We come together to share our naked truths, support our fellow parents, and inspire the inner growth that each of us needs to build the life and family of our dreams. For the parents that are struggling, we want you to know that we will love you until you can love yourself. For your children, we pray and send power from our collective group. As we come to understand our divine nature, we realize that there's no need to feel lack, feel sorry for ourselves, be angry. We come to understand that our feelings of limitation and separation are only in our minds. Through self-realization, we expand our consciousness so that the challenges that perplex us today dissipate one by one until we're able to see and experience gratitude and beauty in everything just as it is. We have the power to create any kind of life we want for ourselves and our families. We do this by living in the naked present moment, one day at a time. Esther and Jerry Hicks call it the science of deliberation, and we call it the answer to all of our prayers. So before we get to the show today, let's do a breathing exercise and just take some time to find that inner space where all of the worries of life disappear. So if you get a straight spine, sit up tall and straight and let your eyes close. And then we're going to inhale and tense our whole body and clench our fists. And we're going to exhale and release and relax. Inhale, we're going to do that 3 or 4 times. And then we're going to sit in the space that we created. So here we go. Inhale and clench your body and your fist. Hold it. Exhale, relax. Inhale, clench. Hold it. Exhale, relax. One more time. Inhale, clench the body. Hold it. And exhale, relax. Now you're just going to inhale one time and hold it and exhale. And then sit in that place you created. This is the place that we can go when the stresses of life get to us. Because in this space, there's no missing mortgage payments. There's no dirty homes. It's a sacred place. I'm slowly learning about the higher consciousness and the sacred place that it is. And I hope that you all join me on this journey. But I'm excited to get to our show today. I'd like to introduce you to Kaycee Nicholson, who is a mom of 3 beautiful children, 2 of which are on the spectrum. 3 days a week, she works at a pharmacy while dad's home with the kids. And the other 4 days, she's home with the kids, and dad works in security. Doing art is a version of Kaycee's self-care. It's not something she gets a ton of time for, but it's something she thoroughly enjoys. So welcome to the show, Kaycee.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Where are you calling in from?
I am in Medford, Oregon.
Medford, Oregon. Wow.
Yep, we're about an hour north of the California border.
Is it a big or small town?
I'd say it's fairly small.
Okay. I think my girlfriend and her 2 kids just got back from Medford, Oregon. but I'll have to fact check that later. It doesn't really
We do
matter.
have an airport, so I guess we're kind of big, but
They took a road trip to South Oregon, but um, well, cool. So how old are your kids?
I have a 10-year-old who is on the spectrum, a 6-year-old who is not, and a 2-year-old who is on the spectrum.
10-year old. What was the second one again?
A 6-year-old.
6-year old. And are they boys or girls or
I have the two oldest are girls, and the youngest is a boy.
okay? And the middle child's a quote unquote typical child.
Yeah, I mean, a little hyperactive, but
Oh my. Um, when did you know, like for the 10-year old, when did you notice that something was going different than how you thought it was supposed to go?
when she was around 4 years old is when we started to notice that I could understand her and Dad could understand her, but nobody else could understand what she was saying. She wasn't making full sentences that people could understand. It was almost like jabber for everybody else. Um, and she was our first, so we weren't very experienced parents. We were only 21 when we had her, so we were pretty young, and it took us a while to see that there was something going on, and her doctor was actually the one who recommended that we get her tested.
And what age was that approximately?
That was about 4 years old is when that whole process started, but we didn't get an official diagnosis until 6 years old. And
Okay.
even that diagnosis is not the best diagnosis.
Um, and then how did that settle in for you and your husband if you were married at the time?
Well, my husband's brother is on the spectrum as well, and I have an aunt who's also on the spectrum. My aunt's going to be living at home with her mom for her entire life. She's has the mental capacity of an 18-month-old.
Wow.
So, when we first found out that she was autistic, I'm looking at the two people that we know who are on the spectrum, and I was terrified.
Yeah.
Um, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to go. And luckily, we had some really great people who were there who helped us um, get her set up with an appointment for an assessment and get her into some therapies to help her with her speech and things like that.
You feel like that helped?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And um, how did dad was dad there at the time?
Yeah, Dad was there.
Okay. How did dad react? It was same as you or different?
Um, I think he was a little bit more comfortable with the diagnosis than I was. Just because his brother is on the spectrum, and so he'd lived with it pretty much his whole life. So,
Yeah,
he was okay with it.
really. Well, that's the best way to do it. It certainly wasn't my journey. I mean, um, I took all the rabbit holes you can take and
Mhm.
not positive ones as well. So, um, and then so 10, so you're basically getting the diagnosis while you're pregnant and having your next child, right?
Yes. So I was pregnant when we went up to Portland to get the diagnosis because there aren't any people in Southern Oregon that can give a diagnosis like that.
Wow.
So we had to drive across the state to get her a diagnosis.
Wow.
Um, that whole process started when she was about 4, and our appointment finally came around when she was 6. Um, and that's when that whole adventure started. Um, but luckily, when she was 6, she was already in school, so setup was already there because she already had an educational diagnosis.
Okay. All right. I remember the days when it was pregnancy, and obviously I was in the other side of it, so I won't speak much of it, but pregnancy and hormones and raising kids and sleep deprivation and finding out something that you can't hardly comprehend is just like an
Hmm.
storm. Um, and I'm happy to see you smiling. Can you tell us, your youngest is how old again?
He's 2.
And so you figured out pretty early that you feel like he's on the spectrum?
Yeah, we figured his out fairly early. We kind of knew a little bit more what to look for because after we got the diagnosis for our daughter, I just dove into all the research that I possibly could and all of the warning signs and things because I was really attentive with our second one to make sure that if she showed up as being on the spectrum, that we'd get her stuff earlier.
Yeah.
So when he came around and he seemed to be typical until about a year old. He had started talking and he had a couple of words that he could say, like duck was one of the words that he said. One of his first words, which is funny.
Yeah.
um, he all of a sudden, just after a year old, just lost all of his words. It was like we'd gone back to like 6 months old, where he wasn't even jabbering or, no babble, nothing. He was just silent. Um, and that was when the worry kind of set in for me. And I started talking with his doctor about getting him an assessment done.
Was there anything that happened in life that you can tie to that moment?
Not really. I can't think of anything that happened at about a year old that would have changed things for him.
Yeah. And I don't mean so much like what we ask ourselves, because we can question ourselves like, did I eat something wrong? Did I
Hmm.
something wrong? And you know, I just feel I have a lot of empathy for parents that are going through that part of the process,
Hmm.
because I don't think any of the parents, did anything, right?
Yeah.
Just the way life's unfolding. Uh,
Yep.
and you have a lot of courage. I really admire at a young age, like how you've been able to sort of move through this.
Thank you.
My oldest son had regressive and did the same as well. And I can go back and look at pictures up to, the before he had it. And it's just, I start sobbing because he's looking at the camera and smiling, or he's at the table with his hands together praying, and it's just, I can't explain.
Yeah. It was a big change. He went from this really happy, bubbly boy who could tell us what he wanted and could understand what we were saying, to not really smiling a whole lot and not talking at all and not really seeming to understand what we were saying either. Um, it was a little heart-wrenching for sure. For sure. I had my moments with all three of them where I was worried that I was doing something wrong, that I wasn't a good enough parent or something like that. And luckily, my husband's amazing.
That's great. Oh, that's so great. I usually tell people that if you're concerned that there's something that you did, then you don't need to be concerned, because if you're that like caring about parents, I think the ones who maybe are responsible are the ones who are still living a lifestyle where they are checked out or don't care, and then they don't recognize it. But I mean, I can tell your kids are lucky to have you as a mom, and you say that dad's a great dad. That's awesome. Can you tell us a little bit about how they're difficult, um, like, what does a difficult day for your oldest look like? What's a difficult day for your youngest with the unique needs that they have?
With my oldest, she's pretty, she's a pretty social kid. And on her bad days, she just checks out. She will be up in her room and she's either reading or on a device or something to that effect, so that she's just not really not really being with us at all.
Um, is she high functioning then? Is that
Yeah, she's pretty high functioning. She started out in a special needs preschool.
mhm.
And then partway through, I'd say about halfway through the year, they were like, you know what, we think that she would do better in a regular preschool. Um, so we moved her over to a regular preschool, and since then she's been in regular classes and everything. And really, her issues come in with socializing. Because she's so social, she just doesn't recognize boundaries. She doesn't recognize that, oh, this person doesn't want me to hug them, or, be right up there next to them, or things like that. So, when it comes to making friends, it's really difficult for her to make friends.
Mhm. Has how's that working for her? I mean, is there bullying? Is there friends? Have there been people that are bigger than the typical mean younger kids thing happening for her, or is it just kind of a lonely path?
Um, she's had some bullying from some other kids her age. I don't think that there's really been a whole lot of kids older than her that have bullied her. It's happened here and there. Um, because she'll just, off the top of her head say things that other people might think of as rude. Um, so she does get that kind of difficulty with making friends and with bullies and things like that. Um, but she's had a couple of friends that she's gotten really close to. She had another friend when she was in first and second grade who was on the spectrum, and they got along really well. Unfortunately, that friend moved out of state, and so they're no longer friends. But
Yeah. And then your youngest, how does his difficulties play out?
his bad days, there's a lot of biting and pinching and throwing things and hitting. His is a lot more violent. um, you don't need to play with that, buddy. Uh, his are a little bit more difficult, I'd say, than my oldest, because hers, she just checks out and isn't a part of the family for a little bit, and for him it's primarily hitting and pinching and biting me. He won't do it to my husband, but he'll do it to me.
Wow.
So for a little while, I had bruises all over my forearms because it's the easiest place for him to get to, and the hardest for me to block from him because I'm using my arms to block him. Um, and I got questions for a little bit about where the bruises were coming from and things like that. People definitely questioned that
Yeah.
because I would have these gigantic bruises all over my arms.
Wow.
Luckily, that's gotten a little bit better. Um, as his communication has grown, his bad days are not as bad. There's a lot of whining, a lot of fit throwing, throwing himself on the floor kind of things, but the biting and the pinching has gone down quite a bit.
That's great. It's hard enough to be bitten by your kid and have bruises, and then when you have like other people looking in, like wondering if they need to say something or get involved when all you're doing is your best, um It reminds me of a story. I have a lock on my son's door because he'll just go out and eat everything in the kitchen, eat through the banana rinds and everything, right? So if we're not walking him or feeding him, then he has his TV room and he's in there. And I brought it up on the phone one day, and 2 days later, Child Welfare Services showed up at my house, and they said, "I heard that your son is being locked in a room." I had to go to the doctor and get a prescription from the pediatrician stating that the lock was, it's hard enough, right? Like,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
and they just mean well too. Like, it's not like people were trying to get me.
Yeah.
So is your son developing? Like, it sounds like his speech is growing, would you say? Or
Yeah, his communication has grown a lot, and not all of it is verbal communication. Some of it is, he knows a little bit of sign language. He's done a little bit as far as signs are concerned, but a lot of it is just him processing the information that he's getting in, and being able to show us what he wants. So, his speech therapist was amazing. And I was so sad to lose her when she moved out of state.
oh,
Um, but she brought something up with me that really kind of resonated, where she said that our goal is not necessarily to get him speaking, it's to get him communicating,
hmm,
whatever that communication looks like.
that's great. That's a great tip. So, what's something that you're excited about for both your special needs kids, like right now?
My youngest is going to be going into a early preschool in September, and
Wow.
I'm really excited for him on that. Um, he's he loves playing. He loves going there because we're already going there as kind of a transition type therapy, so he gets used to it. And he enjoys his time there so much he doesn't want to leave.
Uh,
Um, So, and then with my oldest, we're gonna be trying a different medication for her that we're hoping will help her socialize a little bit better, not feel so, because the one that she's currently on, one of the side effects is depression.
hmm,
Um, and that it broke my heart for her to be depressed. The first time she came to me and told me that she wanted to die,
uh,
I started just sobbing. And then she was worried after that because she didn't want to make me cry. She
uh,
was worried to tell me that she was feeling sad or feeling depressed. Um, but this new medication that we're going to be trying for her is supposed to have less side effects like that. It'll still help her focus, like she needs to focus in school, but she'll have a lot less of the side effects like insomnia.
oh, wow. Well, thank you for sharing that. It's that those are the heavier parts, right?
Yeah.
So how does it work with the your middle child? Are you spending a lot of time with the other two and all of their needs and having difficulty kind of spreading that out, or have you figured out how to do this? Tell us a little bit about that dynamic, and two parents working, three kids, lots of needs, and maybe the middle one has less needs than the other ones. I don't know. Tell us.
She's actually probably the most needy out of all of them when it comes to social interactions. She wants more than anything to be on my lap constantly, and to be giving me hugs and to be snuggling with me. And sometimes it can be a problem that I think her and her brother do get jealous of each other because her brother is also sort of needy in that respect. He likes to sit on my lap a lot and snuggle up with me, but he doesn't like it if Sissy's on my lap and snuggling up with me. So
Yeah.
there's some fighting for that, but she's pretty self-sufficient. and can entertain herself pretty well. And she's got a couple of friends that she goes and plays with and stuff like that. But we figured out pretty early on with her that if I could let her just sit next to me and do whatever she wants sitting next to me, that brother could sit on my lap and they could both get their snuggles in. And I just don't get to do anything during that time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's sweet. That's sweet. Is there anything that you believe to be true that most parents disagree with?
um, I can't remember what I put in the questionnaire that you sent. Um, I don't know. I haven't really been around a whole lot of special needs parents. Um, I mean, my grandma is obviously a special needs parent, and so is my mother-in-law. But we don't really have a whole lot of disagreements on anything.
That's great.
We agree pretty much on everything that I can think of. Um,
That's great. You said that you're into art, so I want to talk about how you and your husband take care of yourselves so that you're refreshed and able to take care of your kids. Tell us a little bit about how that works or doesn't work in your household.
So when my first one came along, we were really struggling with that because he was working graveyards and I was working during the day. And so we really were like two passing ships. We never saw each other.
Mm.
And when we were doing that, my brother lived here and he was great about taking her for me or for my husband and watching her for a little bit so we could do date nights and things like that. Now that we have all three of them and my brother is no longer living in the state with us, it has been really difficult. We have not gotten time away from the kids together for, oh goodness, it's probably been since our youngest was born, so 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah. Um, and taking care of ourselves is just, one person watching the kids a little bit longer one day, so that my husband can go to the gym and can take out all of his emotions at the gym. And he'll watch them for a little bit so that I can paint or go grocery shopping without the kids and just kind of wander around for a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. You know you're a special needs parent when the grocery shopping by yourself is a vacation.
It is.
How do you two, I mean, I admire that you guys are together. Most special needs parents end up splitting up, the percentages say. How have you guys been able to come together over the difficult things, or have the difficult things, you know, kind of been difficult to deal with?
Um, I would say probably like discipline and things like that. Those have been really difficult for us to deal with because I'm more on the gentle parenting side, and he's more on corporal punishment side. Of course, there's no hitting or anything like that, but there's a lot of timeouts and things, and we've come to agreement on a lot of things. Um, we've been married for 13 years now.
Awesome.
So, and we were together for 2 years before we got married. So we've been together for about 15 years. And we can sit down and we can have a conversation, and it goes pretty well. It goes without argument a lot of the time. So, I mean, I can't remember the last time that we got in a real big screaming argument. I don't think we ever have.
Aw, that's great. Thanks for sharing. Is your quote, your the joy of motherhood one? Is that the quote that you sent in? The
Yes.
joy of motherhood come. All right, here we go. Casey's favorite quote: "The joy of motherhood comes in moments. There will be hard times and frustrating times, but amid the challenges, there are shining moments of joy and satisfaction." M. Russell Ballard. Tell us about Your favorite?
Um, it's stuck with me a lot the first time that I heard it. Because of course with social media and stuff, you see all of the nice, pretty moments of everybody else's family, and you don't see the hard moments, and those hard moments can really take over, um, and be really hard to get past. Like I'd said before, I had several moments with my kids where I just sat in my room and cried and wondered whether or not I was a good enough parent, whether or not they'd be better off with a different parent, um, kind of a thing. I have depression and I have anxiety, and so struggling with their issues and struggling with my own issues, it got overwhelming at times.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but those moments where the first time that he said mom was just amazing. Every single time he does something that is new and unexpected is just fills me with joy. He used a fork and ate an entire piece of cake by himself, and it was just this joyous moment of, oh my goodness, he's using a fork. We didn't even know that he knew how to do that. um Moments when I can hear them upstairs in their room playing together and having fun and getting along, is it's those things that I try to hold on um to get me through those hard points.
Yeah, yeah. Well said. Well said. Just to get more of your opinions and thoughts and experience, we do like a lightning round of questions where you give one word to one sentence answers. Are you up for it?
Yeah.
All right. What's the best advice you have received?
um Having patience with yourself.
Great. Um, what online course topic would you sign up for today if it was available?
um Teaching.
Do you have a top resource or recommendation to share with other parents?
If you're in Southern Oregon, Dr. Fry's pretty great.
Nice. The next thing on your list that you want to add for your individual well-being?
Time with my husband away from the kids.
Nice. What's one thing you think would improve your life if you did it or had it?
Um, if I'd had it at the time, more information about autism with my first child.
Hmm. Do you have a favorite product you use for yourself, your child, or your family that you just love and couldn't live without?
Earmuffs.
Nice. That's awesome. I really appreciate you taking the time to be on the show today. Do you have any kind of closing thoughts from what we talked about, or just what's on your heart to share with the parents in Naked Parent Nation?
Just give yourself grace. Um, be patient. You're learning. It's not a perfect science. Parenthood is really hard, but you're doing great.
Aw, that's awesome. I appreciate you sharing your story and your journey, and I would love to connect down the road and get some updates on if there's new words or if there's new times the kids were playing together, if you're up for it. And I hope you stay connected as a friend and partner of the show.
Yeah, I'd love that.
Thank you again, and I hope you have a wonderful day to you and your family.
Thank you. You too.
Okay, bye.
Bye.